Well, howdy, folks. Welcome to the Indian Worker Show. Today, we're going to be talking about unions and how our unions are using our injured workers' grief here in America to sell unions, Med for all, 15 an hour, everything but what our injured workers have needed since 1972, and that's the minimum federal standard. So, this is the Injured Workers Show, where we give you the lowdown and the skinny 5-0 on what injured workers need here in America and how our states are failing our injured workers, and that's what the federal government has told us. Like I said, today's topic is about how we are having our unions tell our injured workers' stories, and we'll share our grief, like Senator Sanders is willing to share injured workers' grief to sell 15 an hour at Amazon for Shannon Allen, but only to use her story to sell 15 an hour, as she wanted her story to be used to sell anti-union rank-and-file committees at Amazon, where I want them both to share their story to put the minimum federal standards on the table that Senator Sanders wrote in a letter in 2015 and told us we all need it, besides the fact that injured workers have been told we've needed it since 1972. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and share with you, we have an injured workers site. It's called Work Comp Stories. It's a great group where injured workers have been able to get their voices heard over the last 5 years. Recently become a closed group, but it was always open before. But nonetheless, we had a few people in the group that seemed to want to infiltrate our group, who seem to be Bernie-crats, who doesn't want our injured workers to tell our side of the truth, and Democrats, basically, that have joined the group that seem to want to spin the narrative away from the needed federal oversight. And one of the guys shared something in the group, and I'm going to share it here with you all. Let's see if I can transfer over to my computer here, and we'll make that small for a moment. And I think you guys can see this. So anyways, I'm going to bring it up. And it was an article that was shared in the Work Comp Stories page by some gentleman who says he didn't want his name used, but whatever. You say you're going to fight for workers, but you don't want to use your name. I don't believe that. I use my full name, always have. Darren Fonso and Darren Fields are both my names. I've had to use Fields because I got chased out of my own Facebook group and injured Facebook page by people that have joined this Workers' Comp Stories group who didn't want it closed as well. But anyways, this person has shared in this group, we'll call him Bob, for lack of another name, and just Bob. And Bob has shared this story that the unions are sharing right now about these ladies and workers treated like donkeys at Amy's Kitchens, accused of leaving some factory workers injured. So we're going to use these injured factory workers at one employer's place in California, and NBC News and our unions are all going to talk about how we need to address this issue, and that's great, and I'm glad that these ladies are getting, injured workers and others are getting their stories told at this place where they're harming their injured workers at this factory. But what we're not doing is we're only sharing their grief, while not telling America the truth about the need of minimum federal standards, because this isn't just happening to these workers with these line speeds here in California. It's happening to workers with line speeds all across the country. And my friend Bob here, who's a Democrat, and I'm a fellow Democrat as well, but yet I'm trying to call out my side and my Bernie-crats for failing us on this issue for the last 5 years, but I have people like Bob and people from my own liberal left that seem to want to step up and say, look how great unions are, look how great, and I agree with all that, but if we're only using the injured workers' grief, and my unions are only using injured workers' grief to push state fixes while not getting honest about the needed minimum federal standards for America's workers, then we need to talk about that. And it's frustrating when I have an injured worker like Bob, who's had 2 years of a work comp injury, who had everything go well for him and had a lawyer and things have been fine for him, while others who've gone through hell for 10 years, some 12, some 15, some 20, are telling us things are broken and we need some fixes here. Besides that, we need to fix that Senator Sanders even come out and wrote in a letter in 2015 and told us we need. And Bob, being a Bernie-crat, you would think would want to do that, but it's the Bernie-crats that are mad at me because I'm calling out Bernie-crats and unions and my own Democrats for not putting the minimum federal standards on the table we've been told we've needed since 1972. So anyways, like I say, it's great to see that, and I wanted to share that I have actually been sharing the truth about this issue for a long time and trying to get our unions to help us. And I had another video here I wanted to show you. We'll move the Bob's out of the way there. And I guess I lost that other video, but I'll see if I can find it anyways. This is a video I'll share with you. Like I say, Bob's mad at me because I'm calling him out, and I'm a Bernie-crat calling out my own side, but I call out both sides, not just my side. I call out the right and left, and this is how Trump and his administration wasn't helping us on our injured workers, and it wasn't doing anything about the speeding up of the line. So here's one video.
Maybe you buy organic, grass-fed, or hormone-free. These labels don't say anything about how the people producing your meat are being treated. The people who kill, cut, and prepare your meat suffer some of the highest rates of injury among American workers. We met workers across the country who lost fingers and suffered severe burns. Almost everyone spoke of debilitating pain. It's so dangerous that people actually die doing this work. And this was already happening before the Trump administration relaxed regulations. They are allowing companies to speed up the production lines for chicken, and beef is probably next. More meat, more money. These regulations put corporate profit ahead of the safety of American workers. Let's tell the Trump administration that corporate profit should not come at the expense of workers' safety. America's workers deserve better.
All right, that was that video, and then we have another video. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. If I go to here, sorry if you can bear with me for a moment here. I want to bring up this other video we had here, something about, oh, here it was. This is the other one that also speaks about, oh no, that's the same video. Sorry about that, excuse me. Here it is, there's the one I'm trying to find.
Check out this verbo.
Oh, no. Little commercial, we'll get rid of that.
Cousins.
And getting caught in machinery.
I started again.
The average American eats about 200 pounds of meat a year, and before all of that meat ends up on our dinner tables, it first has to be processed at a slaughterhouse. Working in a meatpacking factory is a tough, dangerous job. Sharp knives, fast production lines, and long hours can result in workers losing fingers and limbs and getting caught in machinery. But it's also dangerous because of what might seem to you and me like a mundane problem: injuries caused by performing the same motion over and over and over again. Think about what life in a meatpacking plant is like, working on an assembly line, repeatedly slicing chicken breasts, or cutting apart beef carcasses, or lifting and packaging hams. That takes a lot of muscle. Some meatpacking workers reported making 40,000 to 100,000 motions every 8-hour shift. And they have to do it quickly. Some workers say they have to complete 150 motions per minute. That's why regulators say a common problem among meatpacking workers is musculoskeletal disorders, or MSDs, things like carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis, and rotator cuff injuries. A 2013 government study found that repetitive motion cases caused by microtasks among meatpacking workers was 10 times that of other private industries. Another study found that 57% of all workers at a South Carolina poultry plant reported at least one MSD. Workers routinely have to miss work or even quit thanks to these injuries. Sometimes they end up injured for life. One former pork plant worker told us that she sustained permanent injuries to her right shoulder while on the job. Teresa started in a Nebraska plant when she was 23 and left 5 years later. Now, Teresa says, she can barely hold and feed her children. Follow more of Harvest Public.
So anyways, and I'll stop there. We can clearly see that we have some issues going on with our workers being harmed across America, and this is happening in every state, not just a few states, and it needs to be addressed, and we need to take care of it. And so that's why when this friend of mine and my liberal friends and my Bernie-crat friends say, oh, well, the union's going to be the fix, and my union here is using our injured workers' grief, but yet I have begged of our unions in America to please stand up and speak up for our injured workers' federal human rights issue, yet they have refused to and give me excuses like State Representative Bob Halsagawa also gives me excuses that we don't need federal oversight, we got all this other stuff. Then why did Senator Sanders tell us we need it in a letter written in 2015 to Tom Perez when he ran the Department of Labor? Since 2016, America's injured workers have been told the truth by our own liberal left, that our own liberal left has put Med for All and single-payer state initiatives, the BizNet state payers initiative as far as I'm concerned at this point, rather than putting our injured workers' human federal rights on the table for every worker. So it's frustrating to me when I'm in this group called Work Comp Stories and I'm reaching out and trying to get the truth told when I have on my other side, my own side, basically Bernie crowds, coming up and telling me, oh, well, you need unions. I agree with that, but we also need our unions to be telling us the truth here and not just using our grief the way Senator Sanders used our injured workers' grief as he ran for 2 presidential cycles and never said a word or put lip service to the letter he wrote our injured workers here in America in 2015. We have been left under the progressive ship to die. And listen to this. I have called on unions to help for over 5 years now, and this is how they respond back. So when my friend Bob from Work Comp Stories Facebook group tells me unions are the solution, they're not the solution for injured workers if they can't get honest and use our grief to tell the truth, the full truth, and the whole truth, that we need some minimum federal standards to stop this class war on us being done by state businessmen who run our state lawmakers. And we need to address this issue with the truth, not keep remaining silent or patting people on the back who aren't being honest about it and open about it so we can get it fixed and go fight the other alec right side to get this on every worker's table in America. This
Okay.
is me calling out
Nah,
the union.
Darren's on the phone. Darren, what, buddy? We got important guests. What do you need, buddy?
Yeah, I'm not important.
You're right now.
You know why we've gone through Labor Day weekend and nobody said about it, one word about a war on injured workers or a needed Fed issue, as we allow the AFT and Reverend Barber to scream louder for Med for All plan that Section 801 leaves our injured workers behind. And I want to know why we are failing the injured workers of America. That's LaGrange.
Now what, Darren? Darren, don't you think that we don't say the word injured workers because you do too much? That what they mean is,
So I say the word injured workers too much. My union representatives here in America say I say it too much. I say union reps and labor voices like him and Kashmir Sawant are not saying the words injured workers enough. Senator Sanders and even President Biden isn't saying the word injured worker enough. He can say fire pits for his son and how they harmed his son on the job in the service, but he doesn't want to say minimum federal standards for all the rest of America's workers. President Biden needs to step up in here. Our unions need to step up and represent us, and this is not appropriate for these people to continue to tell us and make excuses when they won't put the issue on the table. We will continue to listen to Chris make excuses here.
is funding OSHA, which Biden has talked about, as has anybody running for federal government, as well as what, Brian? Also, the COVID gag order. We're talking about that.
Brian, I think we
and
need-
also no, Brian, and also Darren. You know, the corporations don't want to be liable if someone gets sick from COVID.
And that's why they fear our minimum federal standards that you are aiding them in with silence, Chris. We could have minimum federal standards for COVID, and the next time this happens, we won't have to sit in the courts and fight and argue, can the president do this, can the president not do that, can the Congress do this, can they not do this? We'll have some minimum federal laws in place that people will have to abide and adhere to, one way or the other. But not having any laws is messing us all up, and our union's not getting honest about that is a problem. So I'm going to switch back over here. That was enough of Chris Grains. I pretty much showed you that my unions don't really seem to want to give us any help here. And so I'm going to, hold on, see if I can transfer back over to the studio. Bingo, in the studio. Anyways, there you have it, folks. It's frustrating for me as an injured worker who has begged for help now since I had the letter from Senator Sanders in 2015, and my my U.S. Representative, Senator Patty Murray, had also signed a letter. So when I went to folks like Jason Call and Tyler Vega from our Bernie crowds, I thought, this is going to be awesome. These people are going to help. It's been nothing but people trying to silence me, jail me, and anything but help. And when I reached out to Washington State Labor Council, they have refused to help on this issue. They fight for the state bizmen's work comp rates, the state bizmen's state rights over our workers' federal human rights, and that's where the failure is here in America. Our unions are failing to pick up the mantle and demand minimum federal standards for workers in America. So that a man gets $75,000 in one state for an amputated arm and $750,000 in another state, or so that women don't get 10% less than us males get for our body parts because of gender bias. See, we don't want to address inequality for workers. We don't want to address gender bias, not truly. And this also hurts immigration some issues too, as well as that. So when my liberal Democrats tell me they don't want to talk about this, or that was the other thing, I had my state representative Ortiz Self and my own mental health care used as a tool to harm me. And instead of tell the truth on Latino Legislative Day in my state in 2018, my healthcare team went there to say they were going to talk about mental health and about how workers' comp helps injured workers here in the state and not to fear it if you're an immigrant. Yet I told the lady, Claudia Alegre, who was a CMAR's legislative liaison, to please speak up for our injured workers and tell them how my father-in-law, who was a Mexican immigrant, was worked to death on the job here in the state of Washington, but nobody wanted to talk about that. And Ortiz Self, who was my Latino representative, was there, and she didn't want to get honest about it either. They only wanted to use the immigrants, injured workers, to spin a narrative to say that Washington State wasn't one of 32 states failing its injured workers, when the federal government and I and many other injured workers were saying it is, and was, and still is. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope this whole video went through. It's frustrating when I have other Bernie-crats come to the Work Comp Stories page that I've been a part of since it started years ago, and seem to want to silence my voice out as I call my own side out, Jason Call and Tyler Vega and Pramila Jayapal, who wants to push whole Washington initiatives, and Kashmir Sawant, our Seattle City Councilwoman, who's supposed to be the socialist voice for America, yet she too has refused to put our injured workers' minimum federal human rights on the table as she pushes whole Washington, which is a big ruse here in the state, because we will not get it. It violates our Constitution. Even if you get it through, it will be fought in the courts and struck back down, because we have no income tax, and it requires us to put forth some kind of an income tax the way they put it forth, and that will never happen here. So we're having my Democrat sheep led in circles for something they know they're not going to get. Jason Call and Tyler Vega tell us they know they're going to lose their elections when they go up against U.S. Representative Rick Larson, yet they know they're going to lose. So if you're going to lose and run a losing fight, why not get honest about a war on our injured workers and the minimum federal standards? Senator Sanders told him himself he needed in a letter, as you all fly his populist flag behind your heads and say we're going to be better than the entrenched Democrats that we're all trying to take down. That's why it's frustrating when I'm in this Work Comp Stories group, which seems, I know the guy who runs it, he's ran it for years, and me and him are, I don't want to say we're friends, we're definitely acquaintances, and also he's done really good at letting us get voices heard from injured workers from the left and the right, because if you've been through the work comp system, you know work comp is an equal opportunity oppressor, and an equal opportunity oppressor. They don't care who you are, if you're a police officer, you're a nurse, you're a firefighter, they will put you through a ringer. And a lot of people know that yet they will use our GREIF, like Sanders did, even though he knew the solution was minimum federal standards. He used our GREIF to sell, injured Amazon homeless workers' story to sell $15 an hour. He did that. We got it on video. We captured it all. And it's frustrating when you're trying to get truth told in America and your own Bernie-crats don't want to help you tell that truth. For something that in my mental health record shows that this harmed my father when I was 7 years old in 1976, around there, and for 9 years he fought and never did get his workers' comp. He got his SSDI. Then my father-in-law, like I said, was an immigrant, was worked to death here after 2 years of his on-the-job injury of getting hurt at Walmart. And then my case, which took 8 years, and then another basically 10 years as I've been cost shifted off to SSDI, where we've had to fight the SSDI system with overpayments that were not even real. It turned out after 3 years they were fraudulent overpayments they were putting me through before, because they owed me a whole thousands of dollars that they were holding out on me and my family for 3 years. As I was begging for my unions and Washington State Labor Council, Representative Rick Larson, my CMAR Behavioral Mental Health, to all speak up and tell the truth here. And CMAR Behavioral Health, mental health therapists told me to sing Kumbaya on YouTube, as Claudia Alegre their legislative liaison, director of behavioral health for Seymour here in Washington State, is dining and wining and dining with folks like U.S. Rick Larson and State Representative Ortiz Self and so on. And whole Washington representatives as well. She's fighting for whole Washington. So when my health care was, what screwed me up to start was because people were omitting the truth of my health care to deny me health care, and vocational services also fell on me. Yet on the end of it, I want to get my truth told, and I'm told to go tell my truth and sing it out on YouTube so my lawmakers will hear me, but yet my medical health care team can't convey that to the lawmakers through their legislative liaison to report the patient abuse and state codified oppression. There's something wrong with that. That's why I've reported these folks to the state med board, which too will fail me because the board or quorum of 4 doctors will say, well, this is just a standard of care. We need to wake up, we need to call out our unions, and if our unions don't step up and represent America's workers, then that's where the failure is. And that's why you're being hurt and harmed in your work comp system today, no matter what state of America you are in. Blame your union brother, because he's not standing up and speaking up for you because he don't give a fuck that you've been screwed out of your job. Doesn't even know that that's happening to you because his union leaders are not conveying this information to the folks down the line, because we are taking our orders from the state Alec Bisman and the state medical professionals that are managers of the hospitals, not mainly the nurses at the hospitals. A lot of these nurses that are pushing these initiatives and have time to go do all this stuff are getting paid by the hospitals to push these initiatives on their time off, and they go off and they become managers and move up the line. It's egregious. When workers come out and tell you we're being hurt and harmed, and we had a letter from Senator Sanders that says what we're saying is true and correct, yet the whole liberal left has pissed on us. For 5 years, it's complicit. Silence on the minimum federal standards. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to go out with that. I didn't want to get too deep and too long there, but when this other injured worker's only had 2 years of experience, his case has gone really well. His name is Bob, and he's a liberal from Illinois, and he thinks everything's just fine, and you know, you just need to get a lawyer up. Well, then he won't listen to me and understand. Many of us in America can't get lawyers in SSDI or work comp systems on the overpayment. We're being forced to fight pro se, and some of us are driven insane in the process. And yeah, it's not humane. Quite simple. And when we try to speak up for a man having $35,000 for an arm in one state, and the other man getting $750,000, and you can't see that inequality as our union representatives in America today, then there is a failure. Weingartner from the AFT, speak up. Yukon Blog, speak up. Swamp, speak up. Randy Rhodes, talk show host, liberal talk show host. Same with Tom Hartman, who I begged of 5 years ago and explained exactly how Democrats and Sanders were failing my injured workers, yet for 5 years as he writes books on inequality, he can't say a word about the need for minimum federal standards for our workers that we've been told we've needed since 1972, and once again in 2020 by the bipartisan Congressional Research Service. So that's not even Sanders in that. That's Congressional Research Service that had smart people from both sides in a think tank that got together to decide what America's workers need to stop a class war from being waged upon us through state law ran by bizmen who own our state lawmakers. Sorry. We need truth in America, not people trying to cover it up or silence those of us trying to blow the whistle. Bernie Kratz, you should be stepping up to the plate here. You're the third-party candidates usually that don't get in, so you're supposed to draw attention to all the other issues. That's why Jason Call says, well, I might lose, I know I'm going to lose, and he's going to win, but I'm going to draw attention to Medicare for all in whole Washington. Well, sir, if you're going to run for U.S. office, don't you push a state initiative ahead of my federal, workers' federal human rights, because that's inhumane, Jason Call, and I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to continue to preach to others. If you're going to run for office again and lose, and intend to lose, to push Medicare for all in whole Washington that you know you also are going to lose on, then, and you tell me you can't get honest about a war on our injured workers and minimum federal standards, there's something wrong with that. Have a good day. Adios. And remember, during the Worker Show, we slow down the skinny on what injured workers need here in America. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it's a little gritty, but it's the truth.
Welcome back. Tom Hartman here with you, and it's Anything Goes Friday. Darren in Everett, Washington, watching us on Facebook Live. Hey, Darren, what's up?
Hey, I want to talk about a war on injured workers and how it's adding to homelessness and inequality here in America. That back in 2015, OSHA and Senator Sanders and NPR all told us, and the U.S. Department of Labor with Tom Perez all come out and told us we need some minimum federal standards over these broken state work comp systems. Yet 3 years later, the left is silent, and I'm begging for help here as an injured worker in the state of Washington who has been abused and harmed. Yet I have our revolution not wanting to put this issue and Senator Sanders' solutions on the table. And I would like to know why the left basically is failing us at this time.
I don't know the answer to your question, Darren, and I'm sorry to hear about your circumstances. I hope you get through it. I'm sorry, I don't know. Paul in Sparta, Wisconsin. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for